Good afternoon. All right, for today, right, we're gonna look into social media storytelling, right? Again, we're gonna look how a particular approach, a particular dimension, right? The characteristics of words, the structuring of words used, that is particular to social media storytelling, right? All right. So obviously you all know what is social media, right? So a platform where online communities that exist to let people share their news, opinions, personal info, photos, and videos. And they are arguably have an enormous impact on our online lives and also on the way we tell interactive stories, right? Not necessarily confined, the impact is not confined on online lives alone, right? Even the way, even the way we interact, right? The thinking that is structured. For example, right, previously about 5 to 10 years ago, you would probably never have imagined about taking a picture when you're going for a dining, right? now Nowadays we have restaurants that are Instagrammable restaurants, right? If I'm not mistaken of the term, right? So the convolution, what I mean is that the culmination of both online social media platforms and our lives are so much so merged that they have the potential to we are the way we lead our life, right? And of course, the way we communicate our stories, right? From Insta stories, right? From great photos, for examples, right? From blogging, right? What we have emerged or what we have achieved today, simply, right? Right. So previously, I don't think you have used all these platforms, right? Friendster, MySpace, right? LinkedIn is still here, right? It's more official, right? It's more working adults, right? Using to look for employment and opportunities, hiring, and so on and so forth, right? More academic, right? More professional. And then Facebook is still here, YouTube, Bebo, right, Twitter, and so on and so forth, right? And they are right. So for now, we don't have Friendster, MySpace, obviously, right? They were pre-Facebook era, right? So before Facebook's came into into place, Friendster and MySpace was one amongst the prominent, popular medium, right? I was this generation, meaning that I was in my secondary school, right? We would go to cyber cafes, right? We have this what do you call, where you can edit your layout of your Friendster, MySpace, and so on and so forth, right? It was cool back then, but obviously not now today, right? So that is it, right? And I still remember when YouTube first came in, right? I mean, when YouTube was first launched, right? I was told that you can view videos directly from YouTube, right? But I was so worried what YouTube is, right? How does it function? Is the do I mean is the videos secure and so on and so forth, right? So all kind of worries, right? But now it's very common, right? It's common for almost everyone, right? Right, the popularity of particular social media sites can wax and wane, and new forms of other social media are introduced quote frequently, right? Teens are suffering from Facebook fatigue, while Twitter is growing in popularity with teens, and Reddit is also quite popular. Other sites popular with teens include Tumblr, Snapchat, while a new study show that adults favor Pinterest and Instagram. I believe the mediums, right, the popular mediums are being used almost by right, age groups, right? You cannot for me, right, from what I observed, I don't know whether you can simply associate a particular social media platform with one particular group. Like, for example, what I say is that there's always this perception that the Facebook population is more conservative, right? Or the Twitter population is more progressive, right, or more critical minded. Facebook population, right? So I don't know how far that can be true, but there are obviously instances that reflects in such way. Like, for example, the recent posted, right, by the immigration department saying that the Rohingyas are not allowed. There's an operation going on. They would be launching an operation against the migrant, what do you call the refugees of Rohingyas, right? So the response in Twitter was very critical, right? People were condemning the immigration department, right? We to remove the poster immediately, right? Okay. Right. So many users are so tied to social media that they connect to it from others might give others pause. For example, 32% people aged 18 to 24 use social media in the bathroom. 51% of the people aged 25 to 34 connect while at work in the offices. Right? Even some astronauts have been heavy users of social media and regularly tweeted to global audiences from the International Space Station. Right? So now it is beyond imaginable where you could access it from. Right? I believe we all share the same guilty pleasure over here. Right? We all have done all this, right? Except, of course, tweeting or using social media from astronaut from what do you call, from a space station, right? Other than that, right, we are almost using it everywhere and anywhere, on the bed, before sleep, during class, obviously, right, right, when there's a boarding conference and so on and so forth, right? So it has become very much synonymous with our life, right? Okay, right, the power of social media, right? Right. So in 2013, right, when the Walt Disney Company announced plans to trademark the term Dia de los Muertos, right? The term is Spanish for Day of the Dead, and it's an important holiday in Mexico. Right. The holiday traces its roots back to Aztecs, and it is an occasion when the observant honor the souls of the departed ones. Right. So when Disney announced its plans, a huge protest occurred on social media sites. Disney quickly withdrew its trademark plans, and most observers believe it was because of the outcry on social media. Right? So this is one part, how social could use social media to to articulate or to project or display their discontent, for example, right? In Malaysia in recent times, right, and obviously because of the pandemic, right, or as a result of the pandemic, most of our what used to be a public protest has shifted to online media, right? For example, there was this online protest, demanding for demanding the parliamentarians, demanding the government to reconvene the parliament sessions, right? For example, right? And then I don't know whether you all have participated or been heard of, right? There was this memorandum. Sorry, the petition was going on to asking for the removal of Tajuddin, right? Tajuddin, who was the chairman of Prasarana previously, meaning that social media platforms have been a critical element as well, right? In politics, in social unrest, and so on and so forth, right? If you remember, if you read Arab Spring protests, right? Arab Spring protest is the protest that led to the downfall of many dictators, head of states in their particular country. it started in Syria, if I'm not mistaken, right? And then it spread to the entire Arab countries, right? I think from Syria to Egypt, and then Lebanon, and so on and so forth, right? So it's what, so it began as a they organized themselves through social media, right? If you could remember, or if you can refer to, right, you can see that. I mean, you can refer to that, right? Right. Characters on social media, right? Some characters, right? Some fictional, some real, and some real, but even fictional personas can thrive on social media because of the anonymous identity available in social media, on social media. All right. So you can tweet, have FB pages, post photos to Pinterest, Instagram, and videos, and so on and so forth. Right. So people, they don't have to necessarily know you, right? But you can still handle a page, you can still handle a Twitter account, right? The different name, right? Or you can even post your own pictures and so on and so forth, right? But they are wide ranging, right? Social media sites can be an excellent way to amplify a character's personality or show shades of that person that might not be revealed by other forms of media. One of the special gifts is that it gives characters a first person. If I want to say something, right, say directly, right, I can write it down, right? If let's say I have let's say if I want to write about a movie, right? Right, let's say I watched a movie, then I feel that I'm very touched by the storyline, right? I want to express that. I can do that. I can do it. Whether I can do a video logging, I can do a write up, right? I could do a voice recording, right? Whichever I feel comfortable with, right? Right, and prominent individuals and celebrities have taken to tweeting. Right, if you go to Twitter, you would see that a lot of personalities, right, even Malaysian politicians, right, Malaysian comedians, right, prominent comedians, influential figures, right, they are uh, uh, they are all very active, right, all kind of active in Twitters, right. Okay, right. So fictional personalities are also creating FB pages and tweeting on Twitter. For example, Betty Draper, right, the ex-wife of Don Draper, the central character of the TV series Mad Men, uses Twitter. Right, of course, she writes about etc. 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 Right. So, but obviously, you have someone who handles that particular account, right? Right. So they are created by Helen Klein Rose, a former ad agency creative director who is now out on her own. Right. Rose calls what Twittertainment and brand fiction, describing this as original narrative and mythology built on a brand's premise. Right. So let's say if you have an interesting character, let's say if you are a Harry Potter fan, right? You want to, let's say you are using what do you call it, Sirius Black or Dumbledore or whoever maybe, right? So you want to post, right? You want to come up with tweets, you want to come with FB posting, right? As if they are the one communicating, right? That can be done, right? Right. In some cases, real living people and quite often animals are given the opportunity on social media, speed on social media, right? I think this goes beyond explanations or even examples, right? We have seen, like, for example, if you go to Instagram, right, there are multiple pages, right, or there are multiple accounts that shoots that shoots videos about animals, cats, snakes, you name it, right? I follow this particular Russian guy, right? He what do you call? He has I I think they are white tigers, right? And are they yeah, yeah, he has tigers as pet, you know, a Russian guy, right? And then there's another guy. His name is some real Tarzan or something. I mean, his Twitter, page, Uh, he like could make friend with any animal, right? Alligator, crocodile, snakes, monkey, monitor lizard, Komodo dragon, right? You name it, anything, right? So and they appearing and they have a lot of followers, right, on social media, right? Right. So another aspect is that, of course, dogs can tweet, right? So the dog toy company Mattel came up with a way to enable them to do that, right? So the company is now marketing a device called Puppy Tweets that can be attached to a dog's collar. It is motion and sound sensitive. The dog's owner has to help out though by putting an associated USB receiver in a computer and setting up a Twitter account for the pup. They will then be able to receive regular updates from the pet from a sound bank of 500 pre-recorded tweets. For example, if the dog is having a lazy day, he might send out a tweet saying somebody feels like my name was permanently on the snooze button, right? But of course, right, you would not be able to cross-check. The pup would not be able to say whether it's right or wrong, right? It's just purely that is the message. That is the message being sent by the dog, right? Right, you can read this, right? Okay, right. Works of fiction using social media, right? My Darkling, co-written in 2010 by Lauren Merschling and Laura Moser, was one of the first works of social media fiction. Right, the authors say they wrote the story because they were disappointed in the ebooks at the time, which they felt was almost entirely text-based and did not use media creatively. Right. Both writers had previously written young adult fiction, so they decided to create a young adult novel that would intensively use digital media. Right. The book, although does not exist as a physical book, is the story of a 16-year-old Natalie Pollock who gets sucked into a world that might not be populated by vampires, right? So they told their story using a number of different FU pages, tweets by various characters, and YT videos. A large part of the story was serialized online to Slate. They took special pains to capture the way teen tried to FP. Lots of caps, excessive enthusiasm, and intense emotion about everything, and they received praise from the New York Times for their effort, right? So this is a clear example, right, how you can incorporate, right, the current trend, right, and the extent the research extent someone goes to, right, to provide a better writing, right, or better storytelling. So the social sector, right, was an ancillary online show for the USA network series Psych. The 8-week series was an interactive online comedy murder mystery featuring the same two characters who starred in the 10 cast. It was in part built on the success of another Psych ancillary series, #Killer. So it revolved around a fictional online reality show, right? Similar, right, to any other non-fiction reality shows, right? You have elimination every week, right? But here the elimination is literal, right? The unlucky contestant is Gus and Sean ask for your help in finding the secret location of the reality show house and engaging the murderer, right? So there's another way of invoking the interest of the audience, right? Right. So Lizzie Bennet, there is, right, this won an Emmy in 2013 for Best Interactive Program and relied even more heavily on social media, and when was in fact told entirely through social media. right? So this was a modern retelling of Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice, as if Elizabeth Bennet lived in a world with the internet, smartphones, video cameras, and social media. Story is told as a video diary but augmented with social media. Videos are highly entertaining, in part because Lizzie and her best friend Charlotte, who's shooting them, will play various characters in the story, like Lizzie's mothers and so on and so forth, right? You read this, right? Okay, all right. And Welcome to Sanditon, right? Premiered in 2013 and ran over the summer. Based on Austen's unfinished novel, which she abandoned only after 11 chapters. But the new online series greatly expanded and modernized the story. Here another example in here, adapting from incompleted work. Right, so these are all examples where you can refer to, right? Works of non-fiction using social media. Social media has quickly become a workplace form of communications for all kind of organizations, both for profit and non-profit, right? Both equally, right? So charities use social media to raise funds, artists use them to draw attention to their work, universities use them to enroll new students. So meaning that each and every stakeholder, each and every user have their particular motivation, particular objective to use the social media. Right. So one unusual nonfiction project was launched by YouTube in 2018, a collaborative symphony project, the YouTube Symphony Orchestra. Right. So the project had a global reach because musicians from all over the world were invited to send in audition videos. All AI original piece of music, the Internet Symphony Number 1, composer Tendun was commissioned for this project. A decidedly modern piece, it called for such unusual instruments and dreams breaks and dreams. Prospective orchestra members had to submit a tape showing them playing this music as well as another audition piece. Right, so then the YouTube community, right, the YouTube users would be voting the selections of the musician. Right. Some break, right? Grapes of Wrath's journey. Okay, right. So social media games, right? Remember earlier we have seen how application games were used to deliver a story about, let's say, the Uber drivers and so on and so forth. Right. So here, right, we're going to see an extension how social media games can be used. Right. They are games that you play on social media sites with your community of friends. And they are multiplayer games, unlike many video games that you play alone. Right? Meaning that you would be interacting with other users, other players, right, from the online community, online social media platforms. All right. So what is new is that they are asynchronous, meaning that players are not playing with each other at the same time, though there are a few exceptions to this, right? Unlike most other kinds of games, these have no victory or loss conditions because they are ongoing experiences, though they do generally have missions that the user must complete before advancing the game. Right. For the most part, the games are free to play, but their business model is based on microtransaction, which means that players must make small purchases with real money in order to be successful in the game. Have varying degree of story content, almost none to quite a large amount, and new approaches to the genre are being developed on a continuing basis. Right. Even many other games, like say I used to play pool table, right, 8-ball pool, right. Though what do you call? Though it's free, right? They have many levels, right? But let's say if you want to use a better cue, right, you need to buy or you need to win so many games, you know. and then with the amount of money that you win from your, but not real money lah, right, the game monies, right, and then only you could purchase, right, if you are so into that game, right, so much of addictions and so on, right, you might be probably buying all the things that is being advertised to you, right. Right. Farmville, played on Facebook, was the first social media game to become a massive hit. Right, I've never played this, but I don't know if you have ever played or tried this, right? So its premise was quite simple. You have a plot of underdeveloped farmland. It is your job to plant crops, raise livestock, build driving. I think I have played this. I can't remember, right? Like reading this, like it gives me a moment of going back down the memory lane, but I'm not sure, right. Right, another early game was Scrabblers, was also popular, right, but it's due to its close similarity to Scrabble, developers were sued and the game was removed, right. I remember, right, not Scrabblers, right. And then in contrast, The Godfather 5 Family, which came out in 2000, contains far more narrative and includes video, and is fairly fairly dark story. Godfather, have you watched the movie The Godfather? It's a 60s movie based on the book The Godfather by Mario Puzo, movie of mafia, dons, and 5 Families, equally a mafia story as well, right? Right, in The Godfather, you would see that there would be 5 different families fighting for fighting to gain control over New York, right. So that's how you can use novels, a popular idea, and convert them into game. Right, it's very popular, right? Even Harry Potter is similar, Need for Speed, and so on and so forth, right. Right. So does humor have any role to play in social media? Absolutely, right? Absolutely, beyond doubt. Right? So if it's appropriate, it can be a very effective component of social media. Right? But I don't think how do I put this? Those who decides what is appropriate, right, or not, right, is very much weak in today's society, or it's weak in any society, right. What can be culturally or morally acceptable for me might be very different from you, right. So let's see, but when people are amused by something, they're apt to pass it along to their friends, and thus humor can promote viral marketing, right. So, and when people get a good laugh from something, they tend to remember it more serious, right. Remember, there was a parody made by Douglas Lim on the Tajuddin, on the Prasanna's chairman, right. If you haven't, right, I would suggest for you to look. And that's another way to look at humor, right. It's humor, or what we call as political satire, right. It's a good laugh, It has, but it has all its essence as a criticism towards the lackadaisical attitude of Tajuddin, right? So if the humor is insensitive when it comes to issues like race, gender, culture, or other forms of personal identity, there are chances for backfire, and instead will become an ally, will become an enemy of your content. Right? Let's say you are being insensitive about ethnicity, ethnic group, making fun of skin color. Remember the recent video of Nambi sexualizing the women, right? And now I think he has released a new one with the new lyrics, right. Taking for granted all these things, right. So the humor you use should always be in keeping with the overall story. And now every project can or should support humor. Inappropriate if your content relates to topics as the deadly diseases, assassinations, and the like. Let's say you want to write a story about Holocaust. You know what is Holocaust, right? If if you don't know, right, please Google and get yourself informed about that, right? So the, the time and ages also will decide whether your content is acceptable or not acceptable, right? Okay, right. So far, that's all for today, right? I know we have a pending discussion, right? Which we would discuss uh, maybe probably next week, right? Right. So meanwhile, what I want you to do is that, right, individually, right? So based on your favorite movie or cartoon or anime or book character, right? So what you need to do is that create a series of highly engaging tweets to make the character even more interesting to fans, right? So obviously, you don't need to open a Twitter account. You don't need to have followers and so on and so forth, right? Create a character and then create about 8 to 10 tweet, right? That how interesting the characters would be, right? Okay, so that would be it, right? And then send to me by by Friday, right? Then we'll discuss about it in the following class. Okay, all right. Thank you.